I want to thank you all for coming out and helping me take off the blindfold. You guys get it, that the system, as I heard a president once say, is rigged. And it's not rigged in our favor if you're a defendant. It's rigged only in one guy's favor now. And unfortunately, we have a lot of law on the books that looks like that. And little by little, we're going to try to change the equation a little bit so there can be equal justice for all, because that's really what we're talking about. And equal justice isn't when you have a law that says there's open file discovery in a civil case where nobody's life or liberty is at stake. And both sides can see what the other side has and go into court and have a fair fight. But when you're talking about a criminal case where people can lose their lives, literally swallowed up in a prison because they couldn't get to know what the case was about, even though they had an appropriate defense to fight that case. And even when they're innocent, how many cases have we seen that the Innocence Project resolved over the years? When people confess to the crime and were still innocent. I'm not accusing anybody of coercion, but sometimes it happens that you confess to a crime that you didn't commit in order to go home. We've seen it a lot. But this is, I believe, and I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it until we have a law that provides open file discovery, that this is the cornerstone of criminal justice reform. A lot of people are interested in other aspects of the system that aren't working properly, and so am I. But I understand that you can't argue about bail reform if you don't know what the case is about.
Exactly.
Am I wrong? You don't want a speedy trial if you're going to get convicted because you don't know anything about the case. What do you want a speedy trial for? You're just going to go to jail faster. So what I'm saying is we have a real opportunity. Last year, thanks to some folks in the audience, Bill Bastic, that we changed a dynamic of the system that will now become the law, and we will pass a bill very soon that came out of the Codes Committee to provide for some real semblance of prosecutorial conduct in the cases where some process is being abused by somebody in the system. We don't want that to happen, and especially when the system is rigged and the laws are rigged in favor of the prosecutor, and he's almost like a judge because he has so much control over the process. They argue that they shouldn't be singled out. Well, we singled out judges because they control the process, but the way the law has developed in New York, prosecutors have become even more powerful than judges in some instances. So we're going to pass that law finally once and for all to provide for appropriate prosecutorial conduct hearings. Thank you, Bill. And this is going to become the law of the state. The strongest discovery law we can do will become the law of New York State this year. And don't let anybody tell you any different. Except what we have to see what the governor comes out with in his budget, because he has a tendency to want to do all of these things in the budget. And sometimes they're called the same thing that we're asking for, but when we see the language, they don't look the same. So we have to be a little bit careful about that and see what's in the budget, before we jump on the bandwagon. Because what's happened in the past, and I'm not going to single anybody who went along with the governor on certain things that we've passed over the years, but sometimes what happens is what looks like reform is not really reform, and the governor gets somebody who's a reformer to stand up with him, and the people think it's reform. But we're not going to stand for that, are we? No. We're going to have a bill that means real reform of the discovery system. And now that Senator Bailey, I don't know if he's been here already to speak with you. He may be here shortly, but we will get it done this year. And I thank you very much for your advocacy and for your commitment to true discovery in New York State. It's going to become a reality, okay? Thank you very much.